Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is your host Majestic speaking with another episode of Mech Warrior Online here, and today is going to be the final day in which we conclude our entire list of hero mechs that could potentially be available during the 50% off hero mech sale on Cyber Monday. So we're going to dive into the nitty-gritty today of the assault hero mechs. Now, there are 9 of them for us to go through, so it will be a decent-sized video, but that's because we're going to dive into the nitty-gritty of each and every one of these variants that could be available. So I want to give you guys a full encompassing perspective of each of these guys, really let you know what is the best value buy for the MC and what is the best overall kind of buy for the different levels of MC that are available of these hero mechs. So we're going to not waste any time here, dive straight into the store and start from the top of this list. Now, first up on our list, we have the Atlas Boar's Head, and if we take a deeper dive into what this guy has to offer for us, we look at 1 ballistic, 6 energy, 1 missile, 1 AMS, and 0 ECM hardpoints. That goes alongside a quirk summary list that includes energy range and energy heat generation bonuses of 10%, ballistic velocity bonus of 20%, and a very unique quirk on this list, which includes crit hit chance receiving bonus of 10%. So essentially what that means, all of the fire that you're taking from your opponents out there on the battlefield, there is a 10% reduction in the chance that they actually get a critical shot on the components, a kill shot, any part of this mech, essentially. So in case you didn't understand exactly what that quirk means, it just means anytime you're actually receiving fire from your opponents, there's a 10% reduction in the chance that they'll actually crit that component or, crit in a kill shot kind of scenario. So definitely take that into consideration. Obviously, if you really, really love the Atlas and, you want to complete your collection, that's probably one of the only reasons why I would actually go out and purchase this mech. Now, PGI did stick to their guns in adding a ton of structure to this thing. It has structure on every single component, which PGI, they did do a good job in sticking to that because of the fact that this is one of the biggest, meatiest, high-profile targets out there on the battlefield. So obviously, you want there to be some extra structure. This guy's going to be on the front lines as an assault mech, so PGI definitely did do some justice here in making sure that they added that structure. The problem that I have with this particular variant is that if I am going to be paying real money to purchase MC for it, and then I compare it to the other variants that are in the store that are available for C-bills, which is essentially free as long as I want to grind out those C-bills, I'm not getting anything that's really extraordinary that would convince me to actually go out and purchase this mech, apart from the look. I mean, obviously it has a custom paint job. It's pretty cool. It's got the Bored to Death little graphic on there and a very interesting, actual design on the pattern here. But that's not a reason to go out and purchase a mech, is just by, how it looks. In looking at this quirk summary list in comparison to the other variants that are available for C-bills, this has a very, very short list. Not impressed by any means. And, if you look at the DDC or even the D or something like that, you're looking at a quirk summary list that does cater to those hard points, and it'll probably do the same, if not better job of whatever role you decide to play with this mech out there on the battlefield. They all get that structure bonus. So really, they're just keeping consistent with how the Atlas should be in keeping that structure on the hero. But they're not doing anything with the quirk summary list. I have a hard time arguing a case of why you would actually want to go out and purchase this mech unless you are just a fan of the Atlas in general, which I know there are. So I know that there are a ton of people that would just go out and buy it just to buy it and complete their collection of Atlases. But when it comes at a whopping price of $7,500 MC, so cut that price in half, you look at $3,750 is what the sale price would be. And then we take a look at our graph over here of what category that would actually fall into. You cannot purchase the $15 MC pack and be able to purchase this mech. You do have to do the $30 MC pack in order to get this thing, which would cost, it would cost you $30, you'd get 7,800 MC, and if you spent $3,750 on it, you'd be remaining with, or left with 4,050 MC, which is okay if you were thinking about purchasing multiple hero variants, something like that. But, if you're buying $30 just to get, $30 worth of MC just to purchase the Boar's Head, I definitely would consider differently, unless you do have plans for whatever else you would want to actually do with that MC, whether it's premium time, mech bays, another variant, whether it's in the assault class or the heavies, mediums, lights, whatever the case is. I'm just having a hard time actually coming to the conclusion that for 3750 MC, if this were to go in that 50% off category, that I would actually go out and purchase the Boar's Head, knowing that in the rest of the store there are other variants of the Atlas that do as good, if not better, job than this variant would do. So again, it's you don't see these guys out there on the battlefield very often either, just because I think people realize that there are better variants out there to use that cater more towards specific weapons, specific hard points, consolidates the hard points a little bit better. So that's just personally my opinion. I would first of all question whether or not I would even consider purchasing this apart from being an Atlas fanboy. So let's move on to the next mech on our list, which is the awesome Pretty Boy. And if we first take a look at the paint scheme on this mech, obviously very custom, very unique to this specific variant being a hero and all. But we're not here to judge these mechs based on how they look. We're here to judge these mechs based on how they could and would actually perform out there on the battlefield. But before we actually dive into the hard points and the quirks that are associated with them, first and foremost, one thing I want to point out is the fact that I would argue that the Awesome has one of the biggest, if not the biggest, profile out there on the battlefield. When you look at, ton for ton, angle for angle on this mech, I mean, there is just a ton of surface area for your opponents to shoot at. So that's one thing I just wanted to make mention of real quick, is that the profile on this thing is just extremely wide. I mean, if you look at exactly where these hard points are in relation to the cockpit, they are really jutting out there. If you look specifically at this one energy hard point out here, the rest of it is kind of consolidated, I mean, closer to the torsos and everything. But if you look at the legs, the leg actually sticks out just as, if not a little teeny bit farther than the actual torsos before the arm mounts actually start. So, when I'm looking at this mech just from usability standpoint and actually durability even, for how long it could last out there on the battlefield, I am not impressed because of the fact that this profile is just so huge. Now, I know that there are people that love Awesomes, but let's dive into the hard points next. 0 ballistic, 3 energy, 3 missile, 1 AMS, and 0 ECM. As for the quirk summary list, you have missile heat generation 15%, missile cooldown 20%, missile velocity of 10%, energy heat generation 10%, and energy cooldown of 20%, and energy range of 10%, along with the structure, acceleration, deceleration, turn rate, and torso turn rate. It does have 2 out of 3 weapon types, and all of the quirks conform specific to those weapon types, obviously. The thing, again, that I just want to point out, obviously, they are great quirks to have on an assault. When you can pair up energy cooldown and missile cooldown, you could really come up with some, great combinations for that. And for the most part, the positioning of each of these hard points is pretty beneficial. But when we're actually looking at this mech in this stock configuration right now, I'm seeing, 1 missile hard point in the right torso, 1 pretty much on the head, an energy hard point on the head, and then this little low-mounted kind of energy hard point here. So, and then the third energy hard point in this right arm, which is pretty low slung. But the thing that I want to point out, and I have to give this mech a fair chance. I don't want to tee off on it because it's just a huge profile to look at. But when you have this big of a profile for opponents to shoot at from a distance, they already have a pretty high likelihood of a chance of hitting you. If you're looking at them straight on and they're looking at you, your chances of actually hitting this mech are pretty good. My problem is that not only does it have a big profile from range, but when you get up close and personal, and let's say you want to unload an alpha on another mech that might be within 200 meters of you. Do you see what, we have another missile hardpoint down here and this energy hardpoint down here, and really even this other energy hardpoint is almost even in line with the arm, a little bit above this missile hardpoint. But do you realize how much you again have to expose this mech in order to unload a full alpha? You're telling me at 200 meters of range, which this mech, again, already has that huge profile to show everyone. At 200 meters of range, you're going to expose this mech to your opponent that you're staring down the barrel of a gun with, and you're again going to expose every single component on this mech from essentially here on up in order to get that full alpha off. What do you think the chances or the likelihood are that they're actually going to miss you? Let's just pause there and think about that. Pretty close to zero. Let's put it at that. You know, 200 meters, this kind of profile, unloading a full alpha. You have a very hard time convincing me that that's a good deal. I mean, on any of the awesomes, again, I don't want to sound biased or anything from these mechs, but I'm just thinking for you guys, you know, if you were to take this assault in particular out there on the battlefield, you better be, you know, very, very comfortable with the other awesome variants so that at least you're used to how this mech is configured and the fact that it does have this huge profile. You know, if you're an awesome fan and you just want to complete your collection, that's another reason why I could see you actually going out and purchasing. But from a logistical standpoint, and actually looking at the positioning of even 3 out of the 6 total hard points on this mech, they're pretty low, and the exposure that you would have to get for this mech, you know, at close range would not be conducive to, you know, lasting very long out there on the battlefield. And that's at short range. You know, you're already a target at long range, and your opponents are definitely going to core you up from long range. They have a great chance of coring you up from range. Then you're going to add short range into the mix. It's a death sentence. I mean, let's just leave it at that. I'm not going to go beyond that. It does come at a price of 6,000 MC, so cutting that in half, you would be looking at 3,000 MC to purchase this mech. Now, that does fit in, again, in our little chart here. If it's 3,000 MC, you could purchase this mech and have 600 MC left over. If you want to go buy 4 mech bays or something like that, you'll have enough to do that. But again, you know, if you're actually looking for a decent hero variant for a chassis that, you know, you want to mess around with, you want to have something a little bit more special, you know, treat yourselves to, I just wouldn't recommend this one. You know, we do have the rest of this list to go through. We still have 7 more, but, you know, right off the get-go, I could pretty much tell you that this is not going to be one of the recommendeds by the end of this video. But with that being said, let's move on to the third mech in this list, which is the Banshee La Malinche, or the La Malinche. I believe it's the La Malinche. I'm going to stick with that for now. But as you can see, obviously, from even just the camo pattern, there's a lot of, you know, tribal, voodoo, even Latin American kind of influence to it, so it might be a combination of the two. Very, very interesting, awesome looking. I love the paint on this mech, but again, that's not what we're here to judge. We're here to see what this mech actually brings to the table. So let's check out the hard points first. 1 ballistic, 4 energy, 1 missile, 1 AMS, and 0 ECM. That goes along with a quirk summary list that is pretty extensive. And now we're talking, ladies and gentlemen. We have PPC velocity 20%, large pulse laser heat generation and range bonuses of 10%. AC-10 cooldown 10%, AC-10 range 10%, energy heat generation 10%, energy range 10%, and ballistic cooldown and range bonuses of 10%. That is what I'm looking for. And, you know, it does have, obviously, hard points for every single weapon type. Doesn't have a lot, you know, for the missile and the ballistic, there's only 1. So, really, you're going to be focusing mostly on the energy hard points because, obviously, if there's 4, you know, it does have the large pulse laser heat generation bonus of 10%, which will stack with the energy heat generation bonus of 10%. So, you'll get a 20% heat generation bonus. Then you have the large pulse laser range bonus of 10%, along with the energy range bonus of 10%. That'll put that at 20%, and then if you put a range module on there, you'll have extra 12% to work with if it's level 5, so a 32% bonus to your large pulse lasers if you decide to fill those 4 energy hard points with those large pulses. The AC-10 cooldown will stack on top of the ballistic cooldown, so that'll give you 20% cooldown on that. With the module, you have 32%. And the again, the AC-10 range, you also get 10% along with the ballistic range of 10%. You know, that's a 20% bonus to the range. Add a module, you have 32% range. So obviously they're here to stack on specific weapon types, and at least they're giving you a direction with this mech. It doesn't have any structure bonus, like, you know, say the boar's head, but it, you know, it does have this laundry list of weapon quirks that kind of guide you in a right direction here, or at least in a direction, I should say. Now, I'm not saying this is the best Banshee variant out there that you could take in the battlefield. You know, a lot of people don't even consider this mech, in comparison to some of the other ones. And the other ones do have some very, very unique and more beneficial quirks to them that people just find more conducive to their playstyle. It does have a laundry list, but even as I'm scrolling over these other variants that are in the store here, they just offer a lot of one specific weapon type. You look at the 3M, and it's got 8 energy hard points. That's it. That's all it's offering, so you're laser boating that thing. If you look at the 3S, you have 8 energy, 1 ballistic, 1 missile. And then you look at the 3E, we have 4 and 4, so you're looking at least a balance between 2 weapon types, not even considering that missile weapon type. But if you look at the Llama Lynch, it's just very, very interesting in that it only has 1 ballistic, 4 energy, and 1 missile. So great quirks, obviously way more quirks than any of the other variants as we scanned over them, but just not a lot of hard points. So, they are putting you in the right direction by saying, look, we're only giving you 4 energy hard points. We're going to throw on some large pulses for quirks on there for you. So, if you do want to put lasers on it, definitely stick with those because we're going to give you a lot of benefit to using them. And then even if you decide to cater to those, to the AC-10, for instance. Now, I prefer an AC-20 type of cooldown, which I think would definitely, strengthen the appeal of this mech. But again, if they are only sticking with the AC-10, at least you're saving tonnage in that capacity and even heat generation from not firing off an AC-20. And then you could couple it with maybe some large pulses in there. So it's definitely making you consider all of the quirks that are on this list. And you don't see this variant out there with many people using that missile hardpoint. There are no quirks for the missile hardpoint. The only benefit of that missile hardpoint is where it's placed, and that's way up here in that right torso, so pretty much right next to the cockpit. Obviously, if you were to put an SRM-6 with Artemis on there, obviously it's short range. If you could see it, you could shoot it. Not really beneficial from a long range perspective because, again, it's point and click at that point. So just taking all this stuff into consideration, it's a very unique mech. I wish it had more hard points. I love the quirks that they gave you a direction, or they're giving us a direction with this mech, and what can actually be placed on it and what should be placed on it. Definitely highly suggestive of particular builds for it. But again, it doesn't have the amount of hard points I'm kind of expecting in an assault at this point, but it does have the quirk. So if you're a Banshee fan, it's a very unique variant. I've played with it. I do have one, and I actually have loved it. I've enjoyed playing it every time I have. You could argue some of the other variants being more beneficial for your gameplay style, for the role that you actually want to play out there on the battlefield. My personal opinion, I do actually enjoy playing with this mech, but again, I'm taking into the consideration that price on there, and 7125 MC is pretty steep. So again, you're looking at not $30 MC pack in order to purchase it like the Boar's Head, because if you cut it in half, we're looking at 7125. We're looking at 3562 and a half, so 3563 MC, because PGI, they'll round it up. But again, so you are underneath that 3600 MC pack, which would be $15 essentially that you'd be paying for it. Some people might argue that the mastery bundles of any of these in particular are more beneficial to buy if you you want to work on a particular chassis. But again, for those of you who are fanboys, this is where all these suggestions and sales would be beneficial to you. You have the other variants. You're not going to pay for the mastery packs of them. You're just wondering if the hero variant would be an added bonus, or even just worth it to pick up for a collector standpoint to put in your garage. So again, I've enjoyed playing with the Llama Lynch. I've enjoyed messing with these quirks and taking full advantage of them, stacking them on top of each other with some modules to boot. So I've enjoyed it. Some people might speak differently just because of the amount of hard points on the other variants in comparison to this one, but for me personally, you're going to have to pick and choose. Is it worth it to you at, 3563 MC? I personally, if I was a Banshee fan, I would pick it up because of that quirk summary list. It's very specific. It's unique. It's definitely an awesome mech, just even from learning about the lore of the Banshee and everything. And I personally, enjoy it. So that's my personal opinion on it. But let's move on here to the next mech on our list, which is the Battle Master Hellslinger. Now, first, before we dive into the nitty-gritty on this guy, again, I just need to point out the fact that I think that out of every hero variant in any list, this mech has to take the cake for the camo pattern on there. Extremely meticulously done, very, very well crafted. I mean, the graphics, the artwork, the lines, everything is just so intricate on it that I have to give credit where it's due, and I definitely think it comes in the form of this mech in particular, the Battle Master Hellslinger. But again, we have to retain our focus on what's important here, give you guys the analysis of how these mechs could and would perform out there on the battlefield, taking into consideration, the structure, the hard points, the quirks, everything. So let's dive into what this guy has to offer. 0 ballistic, 6 energy, 3 missile, 1 AMS, and 0 ECM, along with a quirk summary that includes PPC cooldown 10%, PPC velocity 20%, missile cooldown 15%, laser duration 10%, energy heat generation 10%, and energy cooldown of 5%. Now, it also does have a very unique quirk in the external heat transfer bonus of 50%. And it also gives us an armor bonus in the left and right arms of 14 points. So, you can see where these, these massive arms, they do have some extra padding on there, like all the Battle Masters, but they give you an extra bonus of 14 points in those arms just to, keep them on a little while longer than you would otherwise, anticipate them being there. But, one thing I want to point out about this mech is, at least they're sticking with 2 weapon types. They give you energy and missile. And obviously, the quirks coincide with all of that. But how I actually configured mine, I do actually have the Hellraiser. I believe I bought it in last year's 50% off MC sale. Not 50% MC, 50% off the hero variant sale. And this is how I configured it. I've just placed 4 PPCs, 2 in each torso, because if you take advantage of these energy high mounts right next to the cockpit, you're right in line with your target, and if you could see it, you could shoot it. Now, apart from those 4 PPCs, I placed 19 double heat sinks in total if you include the 10 internal, so 9 external that I placed on there. It does have a standard 310 engine. It has a 1.3 heat management ratio. Everything is filled out. It only has a 40-point alpha, which I know might deter some people, but it is at least kind of that mid to long range approach. One thing I do want to point out to you guys, again, I am coinciding with the quirks. I'm taking advantage of the PPC velocity and cooldown, along with the energy heat generation and energy cooldown quirks that cater to this thing. Not the laser duration, obviously, because it's not a laser weapon. It's PPCs. So, taking advantage of a majority of the quirks that are on this list. But if you did want to incorporate missiles, please do not put LERMs on your assault mechs, ladies and gentlemen. If you're talking about mechs, in particular this one being 85 tons, this guy should be mid to short range at most. Do not LERM boat your assaults. You're not really helping the rest of your team. I know it might be fun and kind of trolly just to launch a bunch of missiles from long range, and it's point and click, but and you guys know how I feel about LERMing. I don't want to make this about, again, it is my opinion, but I don't want to give any kind of role out there on the battlefield a better or worse kind of approach than another. Just for me personally, I just get frustrated when I see assault mechs with that kind of tonnage hanging way behind our mediums and heavies and even light mechs, way out there in the back, just chilling, point clicking, shooting off some LERMs and hopefully hitting a target before they duck into cover. It's just frustrating. With this particular mech, if you have the PPCs on there, you're going, mid-range. If you throw on, with those 3 missile hard points, 3 SRM6s with Artemis, at least you have, something that's mid to short range, kind of brawly, can absorb some damage. And you'll be helping out your team a lot more, and I'm sure they'll appreciate it a lot more than watching you learn boat with those 3 missile hard points way in the back somewhere. And the only quirk that does apply to that, to those 3 missile hard points, is the missile cooldown, 15%. So you do get a bonus in how fast you can shoot them, and especially with SRMs, that would fit in kind of nicely with this mech, especially considering the positioning of those 3 missile hard points right in that left torso, right in that left. In that left torso, they're very, very high mounted. You're not seeing anything really low slung too far below the cockpit. So essentially, if you could see it, you could shoot it, which definitely comes in handy with this mech. Now, in comparison to the rest of this mech, to the rest of the mechs on this list, I think for $63.75, that is a pretty fair MC price for it. It's not completely, overpowered or ridiculous or crazy or anything like that would warrant asking, the 7,500 MC for it. But, if we were to split that in half, you're looking at around 3187.5, but again, PGI is going to round that up to 3188. So, just keep that in mind. If you do actually want to go and purchase this mech, you can get it with that $15 MC pack. So you would get 3600 MC. And, you'd be left with, 412? Yeah, you'd have 412 MC left after you purchase this guy. So just keep that in mind if you do want to purchase it. It's definitely an option. If you love the Battlemaster chassis and you want to add it to your collection, 100% hands down. If you're buying it for collection purposes, I would definitely do it for that means. But if you don't like that short, to mid-range kind of approach, utilizing in particular PPCs because that's what the quirks coincide with, then I don't recommend this mech for you. I personally do like it for the price and what's available. With the high mounts and everything, it definitely does teach you how to be that short to mid-range assault role. So definitely take that into consideration. It is very unique. It's very special. And just take it as it comes. It's not necessarily my number 1 pick on the list, but it's not necessarily my last either. It's somewhere in that middle ground, so take it for what it is. But let's move on to the next one. Here we have the Cyclops Sleipnir. I personally love this mech, and again, this is just my opinion. It is the only Cyclops that offers us 4 ballistic hardpoints. All of them are mounted in those 2 torsos, so very high up on the mech. Pretty much if you could see it, you could shoot it. It does have 4 ballistic, 4 energy, 1 missile, 1 AMS, and 0 ECM. Acceleration, deceleration, and it does give you some structure bonus in both of the torsos and that center torso. So left, right, and center torso. Crit hit chance receiving, it gets a similar bonus to that Boar's Head. It's only 5% versus the 10% in the Boar's Head. It does have a sensor range increase of 150, which in meters, that's what they mean by that, not 150% or anything like that. And then it has a Gauss rifle cooldown of 5%. Nothing, weapon-wise that's really standing out. Obviously, it's very limited. We have one thing, essentially, the Gauss rifle cooldown 5%. So essentially, this mech is completely clean. And the reason why I would actually pick up this mech is specifically because it is the only variant that has those 4 ballistic hardpoints out of all of the Cyclops variants. So it's definitely very unique in that perspective. Cool kind of Celtic looking paint job on there. Obviously unique being the hero variant and everything like that. And it's definitely very usable. The thing is, it does have a pretty big profile, and it doesn't get a ton of structure bonus like you have in the Boar's Head or any of some of the other assaults that do cater more towards structure bonus. So it is kind of a bigger target. I do enjoy using it, and it is very much a suppressive fire support kind of mech if you only want to take advantage of ballistics. If you love ballistics, this kind of, I wouldn't say it's the exact same, obviously, but it is pretty similar to the Mauler, the 4 UAC 5 Mauler. So similar kind of loadout can be placed on this thing. And it does have those 4 energy hardpoints, so if you want to do like 3 UAC 5s on there, and then fill in the rest with the energy hardpoints, then put in, some double heat sinks and a bigger engine, you would be able to do that. How I have mine configured right now, even in comparison to the first day of its release, when I believe I had 3 UAC 5s on there. Now I decided to go with the 4 UAC 5s and 2 mediums. It has a 1.49 heat management ratio, all the tonnage filled out, 12 double heat sinks in total, only a 30-point alpha. But again, when you're talking inner sphere and UACs, that's 5 points of direct damage per slug. So if you're firing all of them off, assuming they don't jam, you're putting 20 points of direct damage to whatever component you're hitting on your opponents. So definitely a great mech from that perspective. If you love the Cyclops, you love ballistics, you kind of like that support, suppressive fire role, this is definitely a mech that I would pick up. It's $67.50, and so, it's kind of, again, in that middle ground with the pricing there. And if we were to split that in half, we're looking at around, $33.75, something like that. So, it's definitely fitting within that $15 MC pack if you were to purchase it. And you would have $225 MC remaining if you were to purchase it. So that's what would be left over. Now, obviously, people are going to pick and choose their spots and what assault heroes they want to purchase. I personally would pick it up because I love using ballistics. I love the Cyclops in general. And if you look into the lore of the Sleipnir, it definitely has quite the story to it. So check it out and see if you like the story. That shouldn't be a reason why you buy it. I mean, for me, it is part of the reason why I bought the pack, apart from giving you guys the new content when it was first released. But I just love using ballistics, and I like that support role out there on the battlefield, knowing that having 4 UACs in there, pretty high mounted, right underneath the cockpit, and putting down 20 points of direct damage every single time I churn through those that UAC 5 ammo. It's a ton of fun. Let's just leave it at that. So, moving on to the next mech on this list, we have the Highlander Heavy Metal. And first thing I want to point out about this mech is the fact that you just do not see this variant of the Highlander out there on the battlefield very much at all. I mean, you see some of the other variants that are in the store that are going to have way better quirks, way better positioning, way better, consolidation and focus in the weapon groups and hard points. And this mech just doesn't really bring much of anything to the table, especially now that you have the Highlander 2C out there. It's a very, very hard sell. And, we're going to dive into everything, the nitty-gritty on this guy. And if we take a look, we do have hard points, 2 ballistic, 3 energy, 2 missile, 1 AMS. The quirk summary list includes acceleration, deceleration, turn rate, armor bonus, structure bonus, and a torso turn rate, and angle bonuses. Very interesting. But the quirk summary list, we have ballistic velocity 30%, ballistic cooldown 10%, energy range and energy cooldown of 10%, laser duration of 10%, and missile velocity of 10%. Now, it's spreading across all of the weapon groups, so, you could pick and choose which weapons you actually want to use, but the quirks just, they're too scattered. I mean, only the ballistic and energy ones really make any appeal. So if you completely alleviate those 2 missile hardpoints, you're left with 2 ballistic, 3 energy. And really, what am I getting with that? Not much, because of the fact that, the only missile quirk that it has is missile velocity. That applies whether you're using LRMs or SRMs. So, again, it's kind of giving that generic quirk summary. It's kind of as if PGI was just like, you know what? We have to give it some quirks. It's an inner sphere mech, it's an assault, and we're putting in every single weapon type on this thing. Let's just throw some generic quirks out there and see what everyone comes up with. Well, yeah, I mean, the ballistic velocity and cooldown are nice, because if you want to put an AC-20 on there, or even a Gauss rifle, something like that, at least you're applying it from that capacity, I guess. Like, I'm putting question marks at the end of this thing, because I don't have this mech, obviously, and I just don't know, I feel like there's just so many different options in how you can play this mech, which to some might be a good thing. To me personally, it's a bad thing, because you don't have any hard points in particular to mix it up enough for me to want to play it one way versus another. You have such a spread and diversity of the hard points. The quirks are just generic ones, so, I know whether I use, machine guns or an AC-20, that 10% is going to apply. Simple as that. not really focusing in on any one particular weapon or weapon type. So it's just, again, it's just like that kind of smorgasbord of, whatever you want to throw on it, put on here. We'll give you some quirks to go along with it, be on your way. And now I get it. I understand why you don't see this mech out there on the battlefield very often. It's not really worth it, if you ask me, especially for that price. When you're looking at the price of this thing being the same as the Sleipnir that we just covered, hands down, you're looking at the Sleipnir instead of this thing, because the positioning of the hard points on this guy, the structure bonus and the torsos and everything, this guy does get some structure bonus all over it, but for the positioning of the hard points and its profile, it's got low slung hard points, pretty decent size profile from a width perspective. So if you're looking down the barrel of the gun again, chances of your opponents missing you, not very high. Let's just put it that way. They're definitely going to hit you. So chances of them missing are very, very slim. But that's just my opinion. I do have a couple of the other Highlander chassis, and they are a lot of fun. They have a ton of quirks to go along with it. And if you just want an overview to just prove my point a little bit more here, let's look at the Highlander. You have Gauss rifle cooldown 10%, ballistic cooldown 10%, so at least they're telling you, throw on a Gauss rifle. That's the one ballistic hardpoint that we're giving you. Throw on a Gauss rifle. We're going to help you out. And then you do have the generic quirks that go along with it, but at least they're giving some sort of direction. Even on the 733, you have the AC-10 cooldown of 15% with the ballistic cooldown of 10%. That's 25%. The AC-20 cooldown on the 733C, along with the ballistic cooldown 10%, that's 25% cooldown. In other words, every other variant seems to cater towards, specific hard points, except for the 732B, of course, the last one that I show. But again, even then, the quirks on this thing seem like they're even more beneficial than what we're looking at. If we look at, I think they are. Am I seeing this right? Oh, okay, so this one has better ballistic velocity, but this one has better, what's it called? Energy cooldown. So you're saying there's a trade-off. I could buy this one for C-bills, but this one I have to pay real money for. Doesn't make sense. Even at half price, being the same price as the Sleipnir, I wouldn't even touch this mech with a 10-foot pole, and I understand why no one has this mech, or if they do have it, why they don't really use it. So personally, not a fan. I'm going to point that out right in the get-go, right from the get-go, before we even dive into the summary list here about, which mechs you would want to look into purchasing. Don't even touch this mech. Just leave it alone. It's an artifact at this point. It's not even relevant. I don't want to be too harsh, but if you're a Highlander fan, that's the only reason why I would consider picking this thing up. Just not specific enough for a hero variant. If I'm going to pay real money, I expect a lot more either direction or better quirk summary list, as opposed to just giving me all these generic ones that I could essentially look at the 732B that we were just looking at, and again, get that that same, similar quirk list, obviously just mixing up a couple with, less velocity on your ballistics, but you have better energy cooldown. Like, come on, let's try and get a little more real here than what they're offering for us. Let's go back to the list here. Leave it at that. I wouldn't pick it up if I were you guys, unless you're 100% dedicated Highlander fan. Again, that's just my personal opinion. Next on the list, we have the Kodiak Spirit Bear. Oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen. The Spirit Bear, and really any Kodiak variant for that matter, is 100%, everyone knows these to be very overpowered. They are very, very strong mechs. They come in at 100 tons. And in this variant in particular, obviously it looks pretty cool. It's the Spirit Bear. It's got all that Native American kind of tribal artwork mixed in there, which is very, very interesting. If I look at the hard points on it, 1 ballistic, 2 energy, 4 missile, and 1 AMS. Now, not a very what's it called? How do I want to phrase this? I should say, not a very extensive list of hard points for this variant. there are some other variants that really boat on the weaponry, whether it's laser boating. The Kodiak 3 everyone knows as the Daka Bear because it just has those 4 high mounts for ballistics. And this one just has a kind of a smorgasbord. And whereas before I was talking about the smorgasbord being a bad thing, for this mech, I actually think it's a fantastic thing. And I'm going to dive into that in just a second. For the quirk summary, no weapon quirks. I'm kind of glad they did, because then it would just be absolutely ridiculous. There would be people who stop playing the game if this thing actually had weapon quirks for it, because it's just overpowered as it is. But it does have structure bonuses. Decent, not fantastic like you're seeing in the Boar's Head. Again, that's my level of comparison there. Is I'm always going to compare it to the structure of the Atlases, because those guys get the biggest amount of structure that you could possibly imagine in some of these mechs. Turn rate, acceleration, deceleration. Obviously not as great as some of the other ones, but again, these mechs, it's clan tech. It's the only variant on this entire list that is a clan hero. So it's the first and only currently clan hero variant of any mech that we've seen in the game. And it just goes to show. I mean, clan tech is seemingly overpowered, and it definitely does have a lot more boost to it. If this does have, it has an XL engine in it. The Clan XL engines, even if you blow off a torso, you're only losing some speed. You're not dying instantly like you are with the Clan, or with the Inner Sphere XL engines. So that's one thing to take into consideration. The huge bonus to this thing that makes it a good mech to actually purchase if it goes for 50% off MC is the fact that this is the only variant of the Kodiaks that has mask. And when you have an assault that once it's mastered and you put that thing down full throttle with the mask, and it's going 91 kph, ladies and gentlemen, holy crap. This thing looks like a grizzly bear with like bloodshot red violent looking eyes. I mean, it is terrifying to watch this thing charge at you at 91 kph. And that's the reason why I love using it, because no one expects it. And for the people that do know that you're in a Spirit Bear, they know what it's capable of, and they know that you probably have the mask on there. And I love using this variant in particular. It is a blast to use. Having that speed benefit to it. If you're going to buy, a mech pack that's more than $15 and spend it on one particular variant, get that 7800 MC, so that, because at half price, you're looking at $37.50. It's a 7500 MC mech at full price, but 50% would be $37.50. 100%. I would absolutely pick this mech up if you guys are looking for an awesome all-around mech that definitely has some very, very special features to it. Everything except for the 2 energy hard points are high mounts. So, you have the ballistic up here, and then your 4 missile hard points are up here in the top of the left torso, and then the other 2 are down here, kind of in the center and left side of the torso as well. So, they're very high mounted. When you're looking through this mech in the cockpit over here, if you could see it, you could shoot it. I mean, even the ballistic is right in line with where you're looking out of the cockpit. And it's just it's a blast to play. I'm talking to you guys and letting you know from experience that I've had an absolutely fantastic time messing around with this mech. It's so much fun. I know people know that or feel that the Kodiaks are overpowered, which they may be. But, if you guys want to have fun with a very, very interesting mech that's a ton of fun, and, I mean, no pun intended being 100 tons, but is just an absolute blast all around, very balanced, and, they did it right, not adding any, weapon quirks to it, because this thing is just really, really strong, and it's very quick, as I keep mentioning. But those are the main takeaways from this particular variant, is that it's just... to have mask on there, go 90 kph with, even a splat build, which is how I have it. I have an LBX20 or LB20X and 4 SRM 6s with Artemis. So it's just splatter up close and personal. When you're going 90 kph, you could catch up to a lot of mechs very quickly. As soon as they're standing still, you initiate that mask, and you're in their face in a couple seconds. So it definitely is very, very unique. A ton of fun to play. Highly recommended if you do want to pick up at least one hero variant, and you're looking at that $30 MC pack with a lot extra to left over, because if you have the $37.50 MC that you're spending on this, you have, what is it? 4,050 MC remaining, something like that. So again, we did the calculation earlier. I believe it is 4,050. So you do have some extra MC to work with in case you actually want to pick up another variant in this list, or unless you just want to keep it, save it, spend it on Mech Bay's premium time. This is your opportunity to do so. So I definitely recommend, if you want a well-balanced, very powerful, very unique, a strong, fast, very interesting mech. I mean, it's very hard to argue against picking up the Spirit Bear. And so for that price of $37.50 MC, that is 100% a great deal. And you get one of the most powerful mechs in the game with probably one of the most unique and special variants to take. I know that everyone likes to use the Kodiak 3 as the most powerful variant, but this one definitely adds some very unique twists and turns to the Kodiak that aren't available in the other variants. So definitely keep that in mind. Highly recommend picking up if it goes for 50% off. Next mech on this list, we have the Stalker Misery, with that battle-scarred paint scheme on there, which is definitely very interesting. It definitely looks like it's been through hell, showing off that it's probably a veteran out there on the battlefield. Very interesting take to the camo that they decided to place on this thing. But again, we're going to check out exactly what this guy has to offer. We have 1 ballistic, 5 energy, 1 missile, 1 AMS, and 0 ECM hardpoints. Now for the quirk summary list, acceleration rate and turn rate bonuses both at 10%, and for the the weapon bonuses, we have ballistic velocity and laser duration bonuses of 10%. What? What are you... Is this serious right now? You're going to tell me that if I actually want to go out and purchase this mech for that 50% off MC price, I'm spending $31.87.5 or $31.88 MC on a mech that doesn't even have a decent quirk list to it? This is an Inner Sphere mech, ladies and gentlemen, and they're asking you to pay $31.88 essentially in MC, which would be in that $15 MC pack that you'd have to purchase, so that you could get 2 very generic bullshit energy and ballistic quirks. Are you kidding me? I'm looking in the store at the other variants of the Stalker here, and almost every other one, I think, except for the 3F, has better quirks. Yeah, this is the 3F. Oh my gosh. You're telling me that this hero variant, the Misery, this thing has energy heat generation. At least they put you in the right direction with a heat generation bonus. This thing only gives you, what was it again? I don't even care. Ballistic velocity bonus of 10% and laser duration bonus of 10%. Whoop-de-frickin-do, ladies and gentlemen. That, I'm calling bullshit on that, and you guys shouldn't stand for that either. 100% not even going to take this mech into consideration. They're asking me to spend $31.88 in MC, almost, I mean, not necessarily $15 exactly, but probably what, around like 12? Something like that, so that I could buy a variant of a mech that... What does it offer? Doesn't even give me guidance as to what I should do with it. Yeah, they threw a Gauss rifle on there that's like right next to the cockpit, and they have these high mounts for the energy hardpoints, but so do some of the other variants of the Stalker that would be more conducive to actually using particular energy, missile, or ballistic hardpoints. So essentially you're telling me I have to pay $31.88 for the camo. No. Absolutely not. I wouldn't even suggest it even if you were a fan of the Stalker. If you are, a Stalker fanboy or fangirl, save yourself the trouble. Don't even consider purchasing this mech. The Inner Sphere is known for having the quirks on there. I know that there are changes coming soon. But, for what it is right now, to sit there and try and sell you guys this mech to make it seem like it's actually half decent to use out there on the battlefield in comparison to some of its other variant counterparts, I would just stop this YouTube channel if I ever got to that point in time where I'm trying to sell you on all of these variants. And this one in particular, that is bullshit, ladies and gentlemen. The freaking Kodiak has better quirks than that, and they don't even relate to any weapons. It's all structure. So, I mean, I know it's more expensive, but come on. Like, this is one of those PGI brain farts, I feel like. And, like, who in their right mind, if you see this for 50% off in that Cyber Monday sale, I might even start a forum post on this. Because that's absolutely garbage that they're actually trying to consider, you know, saying, this is a hero, it's special. What, because it has some bullet hole camo in it? Come on. I don't mean to, like, tee off like this, but, you know, I'm trying to be completely, you know, neutral in viewing all these things, and I would be pissed off if I were you guys, because, like, imagine if this was, like hypothetically, let's just think about it. What if they only offered one assault mech in the 50% off Cyber Monday sale, hypothetically, and it was this? How would you guys feel? Would you be happy? Probably not, and neither would I. And I don't even want to go through the rest of this mech. I mean, it's a stalker. It's, you know, it's got lore behind it. It's an iconic mech. People love their stalkers. I still see them out there on the battlefield, despite some of the OP and more beneficial mechs that you would see for different, you know, roles and stuff out there on the battlefield. So, you know, it's kind of doing a disgrace. You're putting the hero in this kind of position where its counterparts for C-bills, which is free, make it look 50 times better than this thing. Come on. I mean, you know, let's call a spade here. I'm not gonna bullshit you guys and tell you, you know, it's a great buy just because it looks cool, it looks veteran-like, and it's for collectors and stuff like that. I mean, you know, obviously, if you're a die-hard stalker fan and you just want to have it, you know, that's the only, obviously, as I say with some of these other variants like the Highlander and stuff like that, that's probably the only reason why I would even think, like, sniff this mech to even buy it, because that's just garbage that they put it at that price. And, you know, you have other variants, even cheaper variants, like this freaking pretty baby up here for 6,000 MC that has, look at the structure and stuff on that. At least it has some sort of direction. So, I mean, when you're comparing the two, even just from that perspective of looking at, you know, MC, the quirks, the structure and everything, you're only doing yourself a disservice and really just padding the pockets of PGI for an unnecessary sale of a mech, because this doesn't add any value in any capacity. This is why you don't see this hero variant out there on the battlefield. If you're making mechs like these that are only available for real money, purchasable in-game currency that has to be purchased with real money, you better make it unbelievably appealing to do so. I'm not saying necessarily pay to win, but make it unique. Make it stand out amongst the other variants. Put the hard points in some weird positions on this thing. Put them, make this thing appealing. Make me want to pick out my wallet and say, you know what? I really need this stalker. It just looks so cool. It seems awesome to have when you cater the quirks and maybe some structure in there that goes along with it. The positioning of the hard points. I feel like it's really conducive to me as an individual going out and purchasing this mech to play my particular role out there on the battlefield. That does not say that with this mech. So I can't. I'm not going to even say anything else beyond that. Don't pick it up. We're just going to call a spade here. Don't pick up the misery. It's not worth it. And the last one on this list, hopefully we can end this video on somewhat of a decent note, though, with the Victor Dragon Slayer. Now, first thing I want to point out about this mech, and this variant in particular, is you are not going to see this guy out there on the battlefield very often. Or any Victor for that matter. Now, there are Victor fans. I'm not saying that it's impossible and that you're never going to see them, because they are out there and people love their Victors. But any role that you actually want to play out there on the battlefield, there is another assault, or at least another variant of this mech that does as good, if not better, job of what you actually want to do role-wise on the battlefield. So I just want to give you guys a little bit of a heads up in that capacity. But let's dive into the nitty-gritty on this mech. He's got 2 ballistic, 3 energy, 2 missile, 1 AMS, and 0 ECM. His quirk summary includes acceleration, deceleration, turn rate, structure, torso turn angle, and torso turn rate bonuses. And then we get into the weapon quirks. We have ballistic cooldown 5%, laser duration 5%, missile velocity 10%, missile cooldown 10%, and Gauss rifle cooldown of 5%. So first and foremost, let's address those ballistic quirks. We have 5% cooldown and Gauss Rifle 5% cooldown. So in total, a 10% cooldown on the Gauss Rifle on this low slung ballistic hardpoint. Now, it does say 2 ballistic hardpoints, and I also want to point out really quick, both ballistic hardpoints are located in that right arm. So you can't even use the second ballistic hardpoint for a Gauss Rifle and utilize the quirks. I mean, you get the ballistic cooldown of 5%. Or what are you going to put on it? An AC2 or something like that? I mean, you could, but if they're specifically giving you Gauss Rifle cooldown, I think the positioning of that second ballistic hardpoint should have been better than trying to put both of them in the right arm. That's just, I mean, you guys let that sit for a while. Think about the logistics of that one. If we take into consideration everything else, again, it is that kind of smorgasbord, mixing and matching all the different weapon types in there. You only have one quirk that caters to the energy hardpoints, and that's laser duration, and it's a 5%. It's kind of bull. It's kind of like they're just like, we're gonna make this list longer. Let's put a 5% duration on your lasers on here. Toss. Come on, like, why would I want to take this mech? Give me a good reason, PGI. Why would I want to take this mech out there after I ran through a ton of other variants? You put some other huge OP mechs in the game. Why would I want to take this one? What would compel me to take this mech out there on the battlefield, apart from being a Victor fanboy? And, you know, even when this mech was first released, and even if I got used to it and stuff like that, the game has changed so much. Even since, you know, it was first released in closed beta, open beta, whenever you first started, you know, it's changed. The battlefield has just changed. So you got to update these mechs. They have to perform at an equal level in comparison to their counterparts out there on the battlefield. And right now, this is not telling me anything. This is not giving me a reason to actually go out, purchase this mech for real money, 6,000 MC or 3,000 for the sale price, and be compelled to actually go and buy it. I just wouldn't do it. If you look at the positioning of the hard points, not the worst. It does have a very wide profile again, and it's these 2 ballistics and even this energy hard point over here that, you know, the one of the 3 energy hard points that are on this left arm that are just jutting out way too far. They're very low slung. Even these 2 energy hard points in the center torso or the right torso is where they're located on here, are pretty low slung in relation to this mech. So you do have to expose a lot more of the torso and the top half of this mech than, you know, a lot of other variants that have the high mounts up there. It does have the missile hard, at least one of the 2 missile hard points, you know, up there atop in the left torso. So that's a good thing, I guess. Which I guess if you're gonna go short range or something like that, you're gonna put SRMs on there. You know, it's just not adding much. It's not compelling me to take my 3,000 of the MC I just purchased, which would fall in that $15 category, and put 3,000 of it into a Victor Dragon Slayer. I mean, like, you got to update these guys a little bit. You got to make them be able to perform with the rest of what's out there on the battlefield, because you're seeing the same mechs that are stomping out there on each map, and with the same or similar builds at least, with the meta builds and everything. You know, if every one of these mechs was balanced in their own right, in their own capacities for the roles that they're intending for you to play, you know, you'd probably get a better response, and they'd even get a better, you know, response from the account, from how much money they would be getting, because people would actually invest in these mechs that are only available for MC. So I'm kind of disappointed again with the Dragon Slayer, not really bringing much to the table. Really, the only thing that's beneficial on this mech are the missile hardpoints. Those are the best quirks that summarize with them, because at least you have one of them in the high mount. I'm not sure where the other one goes, but even then, it has 10% velocity and cooldown on there. So does get some extra structure, not as much again as the Boar's Head, which is my you know, center for comparison, but you know, if you're a fanboy for Victors and you just want to complete the collection, again, that's the only reason why I'd purchase this mech. But in summary, let's talk about what are the deals. Which ones would I actually go for with, you know, if I were to buy any of these packs, whether it's $15 or the $30 pack. If you're doing $15 packs, so that's 3,600 MC. And with these guys, you know that if it's below 7200 MC, you could purchase it with that $15 MC pack and still have some left over. So amongst those, I'm looking at this list, and the ones that stand out to me are the Banshee. That's a great mech. This Sleipnir. The Battlemaster is probably your value buy for 6375 MC. You get this very unique variant. It's got the high mounts in there. It's a great assault mech. All the Battlemasters are great assault mechs. It's a great addition to your collection if you're going to get it. If I were to get, that's probably the most exciting one that I'm going to talk about from a value perspective. But as for just in total, which ones I would take into consideration if it were 50% off are the Llama Lynch, the Sleipnir, absolutely the Spirit Bear. So it's pretty much those. This one is your value buy, the Hellslinger, and then the ones that I would also keep on the radar for multiple reasons, whether it's the role that you want to play, the hard points, quirk, structure, and everything, are the Llama Lynch, the Sleipnir, and the Spirit Bear. That's really all that this class has to offer. If not, then it's really pick and choose your spots. If you have a particular role and you think that one of these variants is more conducive to that role, go ahead. I mean, more power to you. Again, this is just my opinion. These are very well balanced, awesome, fun mechs to take out there on the battlefield. And if you're going to spend real money on it with your MC pack, that's what it's all about, right? I would hate for you guys to go out and waste your money on a BS mech that isn't providing any sort of benefit for you out there on the battlefield, that you're pissed off about, that you spent real money on, and really isn't even forming into your role or helping you out much. So take it for what I'm saying. I hope that you guys appreciated all the videos, including this one that is on this Black Friday 50% off with MC deals. I hope you appreciated my perspective. I hope that you guys, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, or suggestions, if you have any of these mechs and you could provide a testimony for them in the comment section below, I'm sure everyone would appreciate it. I thank you guys so much again for tuning in. Hit that like button and subscribe. Save the video for when the 50% MC video, or 50% MC video, 50% Cyber Monday and Black Friday deal actually comes, so you can line up exactly what you're looking to get if you do decide to purchase any of the ones on any of the videos that I mentioned. So just keep everything in mind. Thank you so much again for tuning in. I really appreciate all the support. You guys are the best, and I look forward to seeing you all on the next one. Take care, guys.